You walk into a room and notice a spider on the wall. That's it. Your heart starts to beat faster, your breathing gets shallow, and you can't think about anything else. You want to find something heavy to smash it with, or at least shoo it away, just to make it leave. A tiny creature the size of a coin can completely unnerve a grown adult. Millions of people all over the world have a full-blown panic attack when they see a spider. I used to react the same way. But here's the interesting part. That spider on your wall had no intention of harming you. It's just as scared of you as you are of it. Spiders have been living on Earth for 300 million years and appeared long before humans. So it turns out we're the ones who invaded their territory, not the other way around. The fear we feel towards them has almost no basis in reality. After watching this video, you'll look at them in a completely different way. Spiders aren't insects at all. Many people mistakenly think they're the same thing, but that's not the case. Insects have 6 legs and 3 body parts. Spiders have 8 legs and 2 body parts. They're structurally closer to scorpions and ticks than to flies or beetles. They are a separate class with their own unique characteristics. As of now, scientists have described over 53,000 species of spiders. And every year, about 500 new species are discovered. They are found not only in tropical forests, but also in Europe and Asia, sometimes just a few hours' drive from major cities. Spiders have colonized almost every corner of the planet. They live in deserts, mountains, caves, and along seacoasts. One species has even learned to live underwater by creating something like an air bell out of its web, which it uses to breathe. Antarctica is basically the only place on Earth where there are no spiders. The first spiders appeared on Earth about 300 million years ago, during the Carboniferous period, when there were no birds, mammals, or dinosaurs on the planet yet. Since then, the Earth has gone through several mass extinctions that wiped out most living creatures. Spiders managed to survive at least 2 of these events. This is no accident at all. For 300 million years, they've honed their abilities to perfection. Their body structure, hunting methods, venom, webs, every detail has been sharpened by a stretch of time that's hard for us to even imagine. Almost all spiders are venomous. That sounds scary, but really, it's just like saying almost all cats have claws. They have the tool, but it's not meant for humans. A spider's venom is designed for prey that is much smaller than its size. For people, the majority of these venoms present no danger at all. I found a number that made me look at spiders in a completely different way. Out of 53,000 described species, less than 0.5% are actually dangerous to the health of an adult human. This is a few hundred species that most of us will never encounter in our lifetime. The remaining, more than 52,000, are practically harmless to people. However, fear doesn't draw those kinds of lines. And here's what's important to get right away. A spider only bites if it's literally backed into a corner with no other escape. This isn't an act of aggression, but a last resort. The rest of the time, its main goal is to stay unnoticed. And that's what it excels at, which is why you see it so rarely, even though it's living with you under the same roof. However, how exactly spiders live, the ways they hunt, and what they are capable of doing, that is a whole other topic. There are things there that, frankly, surprised me. Half of all arachnids spin webs. This is common knowledge, and it's what most people associate with the image of a spider. A web in the corner of a room. A fly gets caught in it, and it all makes sense. However, the other half of these species don't build webs at all. They hunt differently, actively pursuing prey, stalking it, and pouncing from a distance. Jumping spiders, for example, see much better than most insects. Their 8 eyes are positioned in a way that provides a nearly 360-degree view. The 2 central eyes work like binoculars, allowing them to precisely judge the distance to a target. They plan their jump in advance, sometimes circling their prey to attack from a better angle. When I was reading about this, I noticed their behavior is more reminiscent of a cat's, not what you usually picture when you hear the word spider. There's calculation, patience, and choosing just the right moment. Jumping spiders possess one amazing ability. They can recognize people by their faces. Or at least, they're capable of distinguishing between specific faces and reacting to them differently. Studies have shown they have something like individual personalities. Some are more cautious, others are bolder. Some are more curious, while others avoid any contact whatsoever. Spider behavior is much more complex than is often thought. Some species are capable of plotting a route to their prey even when it's temporarily hidden from sight. They keep a spatial map in their memory and use it for getting around. This isn't just instinct working on autopilot, but something more like primitive planning. Picture an experiment. Scientists place a jumping spider on one platform and its prey on another. There is no direct path between them. To reach its goal, the spider first has to go in the opposite direction, navigate a complex route, and only then get to the point of attack. The most amazing part happens after this. During its detour, the prey completely disappears from the spider's field of view. It cannot see it. Nevertheless, it continues along its planned route and ends up exactly where it expected to find its victim. If a cat did this, no one would be surprised. But when a creature the size of a fingernail demonstrates something like this, you start to see the word instinct in a whole new light. Now, let's talk about spider silk. Many people know that it's very strong, but few realize just how strong. A strand of spider silk is much thinner than a human hair, yet its tensile strength is greater than that of steel of the same diameter. On top of that, spider silk can stretch without breaking, something steel can't do. Because of these unique qualities, no synthetic material has been created yet that can fully replace spider silk. People have been trying to reproduce it for over 400 years. At first, they tried to do it mechanically, then chemically, and now they are trying through genetic engineering. There has been some success, but a complete replica has not been created. A natural strand of spider silk is so complex that it's currently impossible to replicate its structure on an industrial scale. A spider produces several types of silk at the same time. Some strands are sticky to catch prey. Others are very strong to form the frame of the web. Another type is elastic to absorb shocks. Depending on the task, the spider chooses the right material, just like a construction worker chooses different materials for different purposes. There are species of spiders that don't use webs for hunting, but use silk to travel long distances. They release a long strand into the air and literally lift off. It used to be thought that this kind of flight was only possible with wind. However, a few years ago, something unexpected was discovered. Spiders can take off into the air even when it's completely still, when there's no wind at all. It turns out they can sense the Earth's electric field and use it for lift. The silk thread gets charged in the electric field and is repelled by the ground's surface, which has the same charge. This way, the spider literally flies, riding on electricity. I've looked this fact up many times because it just seems so unbelievable. Nevertheless, it's a documented phenomenon. They've even replicated it in a lab by creating an artificial electric field with no wind. The spiders really did take off. I love to imagine the moment when scientists first realized what was happening. A tiny spider lets out a thread and starts to rise up into the sky. The reason isn't the air or the wind. It's using the Earth's electric field as a way to lift off and travel. The largest spider on the planet, the Goliath bird eater, weighs up to 170 grams, and its leg span can reach 30 centimeters. Despite its name, it hardly ever eats birds. Its diet mainly consists of insects, frogs, and sometimes small rodents. A bird is more of an exception than a regular meal. The Goliath bird eater lives in burrows located in the humid tropical forests of South America. The local people eat it, baking it right in leaves. They say it tastes like shrimp. I haven't tried it myself. Now I am going to tell you about a phenomenon that most people have never even heard of. Some types of spiders practice what scientists call matrophagy. This is a situation where a mother voluntarily allows her offspring to eat her, not by accident and not as a result of an attack, but intentionally. She stops moving, and her body serves as food for the spiderlings. This is not a sacrifice in the usual human sense, but a species survival strategy honed by millions of years of evolution. The offspring get a nutritional head start, significantly increasing their chances of survival. From an evolutionary standpoint, this works perfectly. When you first learn about matrophagy, the reaction is usually the same. It is horrible. But it is interesting that almost all of our judgments here come from a human point of view. We look at the spider as a mother, but evolution sees her as a way to transfer the maximum amount of resources to her offspring. For us, it is a tragedy. For nature, it is an effective strategy that has existed for millions of years. This is why the world of spiders seems so alien. It follows rules that may not align with our own. And one more thought on this topic. Remember how at the beginning we said that there are almost certainly spiders in your house? There is another myth related to sleep and spiders that has been circulating on the internet for several decades. Supposedly, a person swallows several spiders in their sleep each year. This is a complete fabrication and one that is easily explained. From a spider's perspective, a sleeping person is a source of vibrations, heat, and breath. All of these signals mean danger. A spider will do everything it can to avoid you. But spiders are not just interesting creatures with unusual abilities. Their role on the planet is much more important than it seems at first glance. And this is where the part that almost no one talks about begins. There's a number that I found just unbelievable the first time I heard it. Collectively, spiders eat somewhere between 400 million and 800 million tons of insects and other small critters annually, every single year. For comparison, all humans combined consume about 400 million tons of meat and fish per year. Spiders eat more than the entire human population put together. This isn't some abstract ecological concept. This is direct control over insect populations that destroy crops, carry diseases, and reproduce at such a rate that without natural checks, they quickly become a total disaster. Spiders are one of the main factors keeping them in check. There's a curious thing about the human psyche. We notice when tigers, whales, or eagles disappear, but we almost never think about the creatures that work quietly and out of sight. If spiders were to suddenly vanish tomorrow, no one would notice the disaster on day one. A week later, still nothing would seem different. After a month, there would be a lot more insects. In a year, farmers would start losing their crops more often. And in a few years, the entire ecosystem would be transformed. All the while, most people would never connect these changes to the disappearance of the creatures they were used to thinking of as just unpleasant inhabitants of the corners of their rooms. Now let's talk about venom, the very thing everyone is so afraid of. Scientists noticed a long time ago that some types of spider venom affect the nervous system in a very targeted way. They don't just destroy everything in their path, but instead target specific receptors. This fact has led to an unexpected line of research. The venom of one of the Brazilian wandering spiders causes a prolonged erection in men. Local doctors had observed this side effect of a bite for a long time. Pharmacists got interested and began to study its mechanism of action. Today, a drug is being developed from the substances in this venom to treat erectile dysfunction, which could work differently from Viagra and be suitable for those for whom Viagra is not an option. This is far from the only area of application. Components of spider venom are being studied as potential treatments for epilepsy and as neuroprotectants for stroke. The logic is simple. If the venom can precisely target nerve cells, then with proper use, it can also protect them. Spider webs were also used long before modern laboratories came along. In ancient Greece and Rome, they were used to stop bleeding. The web was applied to wounds as a type of dressing. It sounds unusual, but it really does have properties that promote rapid blood clotting and at the same time cause almost no inflammation. In the 20th century, spider webs found a completely different use. Their fine threads began to be used as crosshairs in optical scopes and telescopes. During World War II, the American military intentionally collected the webs of specific spider species to create high-precision targeting systems. There was simply no other material that was so thin and yet strong enough. So an amazing picture emerges. A creature that causes panic in millions of people also feeds various ecosystems, helps in the development of medicines, used to stop bleeding on ancient battlefields, and helped soldiers shoot more accurately in the 20th century. And all of this belongs to one and the same spider. But there is one more topic that needs to be discussed separately. That is fear, its origin, and how much it actually costs. Because this turned out to be much more interesting than I had assumed. Arachnophobia, or the fear of spiders, is considered one of the most common phobias on Earth. According to various estimates, 1/3 of all people experience this fear to some degree. It can manifest as anything from mild discomfort to a full-blown panic attack at the mere sight of a spider's picture on a phone screen. So where does this fear come from? One of the popular answers is that it's a result of evolution. Our distant ancestors lived in a dangerous environment where venomous animals posed a real threat, and those who feared them had a better chance of survival. Consequently, the fear was passed down to us genetically. This theory seems quite reasonable. However, there is a serious flaw in this theory. Scientists have discovered that young children are not afraid of spiders up to a certain age. Toddlers usually show curiosity, not fear or disgust. The fear appears later, and, as a rule, it's connected to the reactions of the adults around the child. If mom gets scared and dad tries to kill the spider with a slipper, the child learns this lesson quickly. Nevertheless, this doesn't mean that an innate wariness of spiders doesn't exist at all. It really does exist, and this is confirmed by scientific research. But there is a huge gap between a basic sense of caution and genuine panic. And most of that journey is shaped in childhood, under the influence of the behavior of the people around you. Now it's worth talking about the real danger. The black widow is considered perhaps the most famous venomous spider in the world. Its name has long become synonymous with a deadly threat. But if you look at the facts, the picture is different. A black widow bite is truly painful and can trigger serious symptoms like muscle spasms, nausea, and a rise in blood pressure. However, deaths from the bite are extremely rare. In the United States, where the black widow is widespread, the number of fatalities from its bite is lower than from dog bites. With timely medical attention, a fatal outcome almost never happens. It's interesting that many people who have survived a bite from a genuinely dangerous spider later described pretty much the same thing. The scariest part for them wasn't the bite itself. The real fear came from realizing what exactly had bitten them. You can handle the pain, but your imagination immediately starts playing out scenes from horror movies. Often, it's these fears that cause more suffering than the spider itself. In everyday perception, Tarantulas seem like they're practically deadly monsters. In reality, a bite from most tarantula species feels similar to a wasp sting. It's painful and unpleasant, but that's about it. Only a few out of thousands of species can pose a serious threat to an adult's health. As I've mentioned before, a spider never attacks first. This isn't some pretty metaphor, it's the foundation of its biology. It's just pointless for it to waste venom on an animal it can't eat, and that is much bigger than it is. A bite is a last resort. For example, if the spider is cornered, squished, or accidentally grabbed. In all other situations, it prefers to just run away. It turns out that the fear gripping hundreds of millions of people is directed at a creature that actively tries to avoid any contact with humans. A spider can live nearby for many years and cause no harm whatsoever. When it runs into a person, it does only one thing. It looks for the quickest way to get away. But that doesn't mean the fear just goes away. Knowing a spider isn't dangerous and actually not being afraid of it are two totally different things. That's precisely when the biological facts end and something else begins. There's an old story about a spider and a farmer. Every day the farmer would kill the spiders in his barn out of fear and a tradition passed down from his father. But one day, locusts destroyed his harvest. Meanwhile, the neighboring barn, where the spiders were left alone, remained untouched. I can't say how true this story is, but as a metaphor, it's spot on. Spiders have lived alongside us for as long as humanity has existed. They were in our ancestors' caves, in the homes of ancient Rome, in the huts of medieval Europe. Throughout this entire time, they hunted the pests that spoiled our food supplies and carried diseases, quietly, discreetly, and without any help from us. But the attitude toward them varied greatly across different cultures. In ancient Egyptian tradition, the spider symbolized weaving and creation. In Japanese culture, there are legends of spider spirits, who could be either protectors or dangerous creatures, depending on how people treated them. In some African cultures, Anansi the spider is portrayed as a cunning wise man and the hero of tales about resourcefulness and survival. In Europe, things turned out differently. The Middle Ages linked spiders with disease, darkness, and evil spirits. During the plague, cities were wiped out, and people looked for someone to blame and for explanations for what was happening. The spider, with its nocturnal lifestyle and scary appearance, easily fit the role of a sinister omen. This fear became ingrained and was passed down from generation to generation. Through fairy tales, parents' reactions, and cultures where the spider almost always appears as a villain or an omen of trouble. The movies did their part. Literature, too. By the 20th century, the image of the spider as a threat was deeply imprinted on the collective consciousness. And here's the paradox of the situation. The more we studied spiders, the clearer it became how far this image was from the real picture. Every new discovery brought something unexpected: complex behaviors, potential for medicine, an important role in ecosystems. Yet the feeling of fear didn't go anywhere, because fear lives not in the mind, but in the deeper layers of consciousness. There are people who practice arachnotherapy, that is, the focused overcoming of the fear of spiders. One method is gradual exposure. First a photograph, then a live spider behind glass, then in the same room, and finally, on your hand. Most people who go through this say the same thing. The moment the spider is on your hand and nothing happens, something inside you changes. The fear doesn't disappear completely, but a shift occurs. The reason is that the spider on your hand just sits there. It doesn't attack, it doesn't threaten, and it doesn't do what you expected. It just exists. A small creature with 8 legs that wants only one thing: to be left alone. At that moment, a lifelong fear comes face to face with reality, and reality turns out to be completely different. 300 million years. Think about that number. Spiders appeared on Earth when there were no dinosaurs, no birds, no mammals. They saw the emergence, development, and extinction of these creatures. Homo sapiens have only been around for about 300,000 years. Spiders are 1,000 times older than us. Over these millions of years, spiders haven't gotten any bigger. They haven't developed armor, and they haven't learned to fly like birds. They've remained pretty much the same as they've always been. Because what they created 300 million years ago still works to this very day. That is the true sign of evolutionary success. In just a few thousand years, we have changed the planet beyond recognition. We've cut down forests, drained swamps, built up coastlines, and filled the air with new substances. In this new world, spiders continue to exist. In our homes, in our gardens, on the walls of our cities. They've calmly adapted to the human environment, just as they did to everything else that came before us. Our fear of them only emerged a few thousand years ago. For a human, that's a long time, but it's nothing compared to how long spiders have lived alongside us without causing any harm. Our fear is young, but our coexistence is ancient. Every year, scientists discover 500 new species of spiders. 500 creatures that already inhabit the planet, perform their tasks, and are found in corners and on walls, but have not yet been given names. We know far less about spiders than we think. And here's what always sticks with me after reading all this. The spider on your wall, the very one you're ready to smash, has a lineage older than many forms of life on Earth. It survived cataclysms that killed everything around it. It creates a thread that humans haven't been able to replicate for 4 centuries now. It nourishes ecosystems and plays a part in creating new medicines. And the only thing it wants from you is for you to simply not notice it. Maybe next time your hand reaches for a shoe, you'll look at these creatures with a different perspective.